Did you find out any new information? I know you've been working your sources when it comes to this story. Before we get the segment started, anything new that you know?
No, actually, on the phone right now, trying to talk to the defense attorneys. And so once we get done with this, I'm going to go back and call them and see what information we can get.
Absolutely, Roland. Let us know. Okay, let's talk about this, the stuff that went on yesterday. We have these hearings now. After this march yesterday, where tens of thousands of people showed up, some people say as much as 21,000 people, the hope was that this would maybe change the mind of the folks who are in charge of this case in Jena, Louisiana. It appears, from what has been reported now and seeing the faces of those people coming out of court, that maybe that did not happen in this instance.
Well, I don't necessarily think we can say that the goal of the rally was for this to happen. It was obviously the goal of the rally to shine a much larger and a brighter light on this particular case, what is being defined as injustice in Jena, but also injustice in Jenas across the country. I had Attorney Lewis Scott on my radio show this morning. He is Mychal Bell's lead attorney. He said, look, we understood that this is a long process. He said, we're going to go through the various steps. He said this morning, point blank, they were going to try to get this judge recused because of his involvement in the previous cases. So that didn't happen. He said their entire goal, frankly, for the defense team is not rallies. It's not any kind of external things. It's really to focus on the legal issues as it relates to this case. And so what they're trying to do is to find out, is he going to be brought up on juvenile charges? Will the DA appeal the ruling? Will the DA try to refile charges? And so that's their focus.
Okay. Let's talk about that, because also this rally yesterday, two civil rights leaders there, the Reverend Al Sharpton, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, both there. And what I've been listening to on radio and some of the blogs is that, and you put this in context for me, that there was sort of maybe a power struggle there between the two. There was one march for Jesse Jackson, one march for the Reverend Al Sharpton, and then some people said they were upset because the march was short, the parties were longer. Can you expound on that?
Well, first of all, if we use your number, Don, that there were 21,000 people there, that means there were 20,998 other people there other than Reverend Al Sharpton and the Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. Now, here's the piece that we're leaving out. The people who drove this march were black talk show hosts. They were black DJs. Michael Baisden, Tom Joyner, Steve Harvey, Ricky Smiley, Joe Madison, local talk show hosts. We've been dealing with this issue on WVON for 4 or 5 months. And so that's really where it came from. If you go look at today's Washington Post, Eugene Robertson has a story where he lays out this exact case. And so that's really where it was driven.
But does this show that maybe there's not one person, you know, who is a leader? That
there is no. There is no. Look, the days of there being the one black leader. You have the days of Booker T. Washington, W.B. Du Bois. Is it King? Is it Malcolm? Is it Adam Clayton Powell? Is it someone else? Those days are gone. You have multiple people who are leading efforts across the country.
And we saw that, and as you have been on, you know, writing about it on CNN.com, and we saw the power of the internet, the power of the radio talk show host, or the radio host. Let's talk about that, because there were some people, the older people, saying, you know what, there was this party given, and books were sold, and admission was charged, and this isn't something that we shouldn't be doing that. The younger people may feel differently. Talk to us about that. Some people thought that it was possibly exploited in bad taste, but not necessarily against the law, I should say.
Did the older people forget the kind of fundraisers that were held nationwide in order to bail people out of jails in Alabama and Tennessee? For instance, I know for a fact, in talking with Diane Carroll, in talking with Harry Belafonte, in talking with Sidney Poitier, people during the 60s criticized Diane Carroll and Sidney Poitier by saying, well, they were not involved in the civil rights movement, when in fact, they were holding private fundraisers at their homes in order to raise money. That has always taken place. I think people need to check themselves when it comes to that. You always have that. The point is, if you're raising money for a legal defense fund, that's what you do. That's to me, that is an irrelevant issue. The fact of the matter is, you have many young people who have gotten involved in this issue, and the same older people who have been demanding that younger people get involved. Then they did it, but then they criticize. I say, focus on what they did as opposed to some party.
Roland, seriously, 10 seconds here. The two young men charged with the nooses behind the truck. Just elaborate on that real quickly because we got to go to break.
We know exactly what nooses mean, and so for them to drive around, whether people were the people getting on the buses, we know what their intent was. That's called intimidation. Simple as that.
All right, Roland Martin, CNN contributor and radio host. We appreciate your perspective on this. Thank you so much for joining us today in the CNN newsroom. Get more information on what's happening, please let us know.